This is TisTalk from Tisbury, Wiltshire.
Next, we're delighted to present Liz Cole-Camp with the 4th episode of the Yew Tree Chronicles. This week, our Tisbury Yew remembers some very scary Vikings.
You see me standing here in my majestic loveliness and perhaps think, nice tree, shame about the concrete. But what you forget is that once I was so important to people that my twigs and sometimes even branches were broken off and included in burials because of my magical qualities and symbolic importance. I heard tell that a Celtic chief ate some yew berries, not my berries, I hasten to add, and he ate them quite successfully, poisoning himself rather than submit to the Romans. That's the sort of central, if not lethal, role yews had in society. Well, slowly but surely those days of glory and infamy ended. The first church here in the village of Tisbury went up, and my popularity definitely went down. But because this was already a venerated site, due to me, mind you, the new very little and what you might consider a shack of a church brought the people down to this north side of the river, and I rarely felt alone or lonely. Well, dates mean nothing to a tree, as you know, but around 700 AD, a monastery was found on what you would now know as Church Street. And then suddenly those little monks were everywhere, busily fussing about. All seemed to be going swimmingly for a few hundred years, and I swayed and watched, minding my own business and keeping various creatures who were immune to the poison, fed with my berries and sheltered with my leaves. So I was playing my part in the circle of life, if no longer in the circle of human life. And then, around the 9th century, something truly awful happened. Those poor old and young monks were slaughtered in their beds one night by a totally out of the blue Viking attack. It was utterly terrifying. Even now, all these millennia later, I can still hear their screams and my own terror as men running around with torches, no regard for health and safety when it comes to bare flame near a tree. Well, that was the end of the monastery. It was burnt to the ground, and there is no glossing over the fact Tisbury took a long time to recover. Meanwhile, the Vikings carried on with their rampaging throughout the southwest. Alfred the Great, and not so modest, our Anglo-Saxon King of Wessex, was even forced to flee when Guthrum, the Viking king, launched a surprise attack on Alfred's base in Chippenham. Oh, yes, these were dark, dark times in our history. But eventually, Alfred the Great's forces fought the Vikings successfully. Yay! And they retreated back from whence they came. There is something important you need to know about Alfred the Great, and that is, in 888 he built the abbey in Shaftesbury for his daughter Ethelgifu to be abbess there, and by 984 AD the abbey owned all the land around here, including Tisbury. The tithe barn, you know that, and Place Farm down the road were built by the 13th century and by the abbey and the residing abbess of that time, and Tisburians paid their taxes and rents in that very barn. Before that, though, and half a century after the Vikings, another invader hits these shores. A date so famous, even I know it. 1066! Yes! Well, next week, I'll tell you about the Normans.
The Yew Tree Chronicles,